You are listening to the Billy Dees podcast.
All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. As always, I am absolutely thrilled that you are here. If you've never checked us out before, we are primarily an interview and a commentary-based podcast. You can find the Billy Dees podcast anywhere you find podcasts. We have an interview for you today. On the studio line with me is Scherrie L. Prince. Scherrie, how are you? So glad you are here.
I am doing great, much better now that I'm here with you.
Oh, well, that's very sweet. That's very generous of you. Scherrie is an attorney who advises entrepreneurs and business owners on ownership, governance, succession, and exit planning. She works at the intersection of business strategy and estate design, helping founders align how they operate today with what happens at transition, dispute, disability, or sale. She is the host of the Play Big Faster podcast, where she interviews founders and industry leaders on business, marketing, and emerging trends affecting growth and long-term leverage. A little bit about you, your background. How did you get involved in this kind of work?
Oh my gosh. So look, if you want the true nexus for it, imagine me, a little girl watching Perry Mason and Matlock with a notepad in front of a big box TV that sits on the floor. So that's where we started, and here's where we are. But seriously, I just had a series of personal things that happened in my life and with my family. The first being the death of my grandparents and a probate struggle that really got me to thinking in my 20s about what happens to your stuff when you're no longer here. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, I had 2 business failures that really had me thinking about the business side of it. And after the 2008 mortgage debacle, I was like, you know what? Something's going to have to give. And I decided to go to law school. And now I help founders and other entrepreneurs navigate those same issues that I had to face without that assistance.
Yeah, that is, I don't think people really appreciate how serious that can be. I had a touch of it, just slightly different situation. Now, my mom has passed a number of years ago, but in that process, when she first got older and she had her first trip to the emergency room and it wasn't looking good, I was in that hallway and they're asking me, do you have a living will? Do you have this? Do you have that? And I had none of it. And I had a wake-up call real quick that I know it's unpleasant to think about those things, whether they be in your personal life or in business, but you got to know, you got to have a plan for when something like that happens, right?
You have to. And if you don't have a plan, the state has a plan for you. And I guarantee you're probably not going to like that one as well as the one you can do for yourself.
I would have to say that no one has any doubt about that. You talk about 6 pillars that every business owner needs, but most of them don't have them all. And I would probably say that I probably don't have them either, but we'll find out. Well, you want to talk about those a little bit?
Yeah. And so those are like the success pillars. And it really deals with, basically continuity and how you reverse engineer your exit. Stephen Covey, in his book, he talks about start beginning with the end in mind. And so when we look at the 6 success pillars, what we're doing is we are reverse engineering our success from where we want to be. Think about your exit. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think that is just to sell up your business. But what about a bankruptcy reorganization, a merger? What if a receiver comes in and takes over your business? So that lays out all the different things to think about when you are approaching those things. And the question is, when do you start thinking about the exit? Well, you think about it not day 1, day 0. Mm-hmm. Because you have to know where you're going before you get there. Would you ever get in the car, headed to the grocery store and not know where you're going? Or not have a list or a plan for what you're going to do when you get there? Yeah.
Yes, that's so important. How do people, I know this sounds like an odd question, but how do they know that they have a good plan?
I'll tell you, any plan is a good plan because no, seriously, not having a plan at all is terrible. So I'll tell you this. Basically, you have a good plan when there are some basic things that you've done. One, you have updated all of your beneficiary designations. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so, because I've had a client who passed away and his wife came to me and we found out that she was wife number 3. We found out that there were assets still titled between him and wife number 1. And I'm pretty sure he didn't want wife number 1 to have some of those things. So one, when your beneficiary designations are complete, you have a good plan. When you have considered a will or a trust, or you have taken advantage of the transfer on death options in your state, you have a good plan. Mm-hmm. And 3, if you can go today and your loved ones not have to worry about your final expenses, you have a good plan. Yeah. So now there are things to do to go from good to great, but that is a good plan when your basic needs and your families, you've considered your family so that they can just have a homegoing ceremony when you've gone on to glory without having to worry about these things.
That's so true. I really like that. Any plan is better than no plan. Although, you know what Mike Tyson said?
Oh my, are we quoting Mike Tyson?
Yes, I love him. I absolutely love him.
Okay. What did he say?
He said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And but you know what? That is true. It is true. You think you got your eggs in a row until something really catastrophic happens. It is a valid quote, in my opinion.
It really is. And this is almost like the conversation about life insurance. People think if I talk about life insurance, I'm going to die. Yeah. Well, you're going to die one day, but it's probably not going to be on that particular day. So let's go ahead and wrap that up.
That is so true. I love that. Is it true? I know that a lot of businesses are obsessed with growth, and I'm probably one of those that I'm skeptical of that. But I've heard so many people say, if you go on LinkedIn, if you listen to the TED Talks, if your business isn't growing, it's dying. Is that true?
No, I disagree with that. Every business owner does not desire to be, like if I have a mom and pop store, it may not be my desire to be as large as Target or Walmart. Maybe the charm about my business is that I'm the little country store that everybody likes to go to. I may not want a franchise. I don't think every mom and pop desires to be Target or Walmart or Amazon. Yeah. Sometimes there's a charm about being the little country store in the corner that people frequent when they come to town. So your success should only be measured by the goals that you have for your business.
Yes, that is so true. And, I think that whatever your business is, here again, this is my opinion, if you are managing the flow properly, that's what gives you longevity. If you get obsessed with growth, you can overextend yourself. And I've seen that happen so many times. And yes, I totally agree with that. What changes legally and structurally the moment a business becomes visible? I mean, when you hang out that shingle and you turn on the lights, what changes at that moment?
One, everyone thinks about your external threats. Those are competitors, lawsuits. If you are a public facing business, somebody might, slip and fall. They may sue you. But also now you have internal threats. And what are those? Those are claims from employees. Those are partnership disputes. Those may be financial struggles because you may not be keeping good books. And so bad debt or tax liability creeps in and it's a threat to the company. Mm-hmm. So all of that stuff starts to be exposed once you hang that shingle, because you may be great at building widgets or being a salesperson, but not a good business person. Mm-hmm. So once that shingle is finally, hung, all those things start to seep through.
Interesting. Why do partnership conflicts emerge when a business is growing, like what we're talking about? When you have that expansion, people who are involved in your business may have a tendency to not getting along with you anymore. But this doesn't necessarily happen at the launch of the business. Now, as a layman, I can tell you, I would probably say that's when the honeymoon is going on. When you're launching, everybody's, oh, this is great. When you're expanding, you've been at it a while and you're viewing things and analyzing things a little differently, and you're a little bit more critical of what's going to happen. But correct me if I'm wrong. Is that what happens?
Oh, yeah, that's definitely part of it. And here's the thing. When you start a business, you're excited. It's kind of like a marriage.
Yeah.
The person you marry is not the person that you divorce.
True.
Two different people. And when you start the partnership, everything is hunky-dory, and sometimes you overlook some of the formalities. You know, what types of things are covered in your partnership agreement? Almost any situation that relates to business and the dissolution of a business, conflicts, disputes, those threats we talked about, those are things that are normally in a partnership agreement, or they're covered in your operating agreement or the agreement that, you know, outlines the structure of your company.
Yeah.
But also what happens is that people skip over that. They run to their Secretary of State's office, they get an LLC, and sometimes don't even have an operating agreement for the company.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no guide to go by. So when there's conflict, there's no real way to solve it other than let's call the attorneys.
Yeah. AI. I know this is a curveball, but I got to think that as businesses grow and partnerships are developing or they're degrading, and what roles different partners have in the business, I would have to think that AI is going to become a problem if it hasn't already. Have you noticed any of that? And as a business owner or as a partner, and especially if you're a partner that doesn't have a controlling stake in the company, what can you do to protect yourself?
And it's really going to depend on how you use AI. You know, lots of people have cut back on staff by using it as a receptionist for, you know, some sort of answering service. You can actually use it as an assistant. I don't know that I've noticed it with my clients, but ways that AI can seep in is one of the internal threats you have. If you do not control the way AI is used and the information you share with AI, then you can have data breaches.
Mm-hmm.
Data breaches can cause threats as well, because if the information from your clients or your employees or confidential trade secrets get out, what does that do to your business?
Mm-hmm.
So I would think that the ethical use of AI could pose a problem, but I don't know that I've experienced that. But that's something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
It's something to think about.
I think, and then from what I've been gathering and from what I've been researching, the next 18 months after that threshold, after we cross the next 2 years, things are going to get really crazy. Not that I'm not one of these people that says that AI is going to take over the world. I don't think that's going to happen. But one of the concerns I have about it is I notice young people now, it's when you are developing as an adult and you're going through bad breakups and you're doing all the things, you get to the age where you see the life cycle play out, you lose a parent or whatever. That's part of your development process. And now it seems like young people are consulting AI for their business decisions, for their personal decisions, for their medical decisions. And I think it's going to interfere with the development of people. That would be my concern. I don't see an apocalyptic thing where, this giant robot's going to take over the world. But I do see an interference with how we are evolving as a society. That would be my opinion. I don't know if you want to inject anything on that or not.
Well, no, I can definitely co-sign that. Because here's the thing. If you look at almost every app that you have, there is now an AI component.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have integrated it so seamlessly that you almost don't know it's there until you look up one day. I was just moving my mouse around on my email, mm-hmm. and I didn't realize that like one of the little symbols at the top, it was the AI thing. Hey, How can I help? And I mean, I just started noticing it is everywhere. And they say that it is a convenience, mm-hmm. but it is a tool. But you have to use it like a tool and know when to put it back in the toolbox.
Yes, you gotta know when to set it down, and that's something that is still being determined. I think we're still struggling with that. Some companies when they get under pressure, and I've seen it play out any number of different times. And I got to tell you, I've worked for people. I think business owners get a bad rap. The general. What's the vernacular? I mean, when you're out just listening to people online, all these business owners, they're all bastards. They're all just making money. They don't care about their employees. That hasn't been, when you're dealing with small businesses, that's not my experience. As a matter of fact, I knew one business owner who actually went to bed worried about how he was going to make payroll because he didn't want to lose or upset any of his employees, and he actually ended up putting payroll on a MasterCard. Now, he eventually got over that. He got over the heap, But these aren't people that are these ruthless characters. They're human beings that are just trying to carve out a living, and they're doing it in a way where they need a team around them. Is that your experience? I think most businesses are kind of like that. They're just these small independent folks that want to do something good with their lives and with their career.
Yeah, what you're talking about is the exact difference between Main Street and Wall Street.
Yeah.
You have those Main Street businesses who really care about employees, and from time to time will struggle to make payroll, who are bootstrapping. And so part of that is, in my opinion, it's a delicate dance. Okay. Part of what I do, I help entrepreneurs merge their estate plan with their business plan. And sometimes when those things are not consulted and not compared and just reviewed on a regular basis, that's where some of that stress comes in, because the goal in being, if you're in business, is predictable, recurring revenue. But you can't be all things to all people.
Yes.
So part of that is working with a team.
And what I was getting at is I think they're much more vulnerable to those stress fractures. And when those stress fractures happen, which was what I was leading into, some companies consolidate. They kind of, dig in their heels and they get over it. And other companies, they kind of come unglued. What are some of the key factors between those two results?
A lot of it, I think, is going to start with the founder's mindset. So you have one founder who has an operator mindset. He's always working in the company. And it's more than likely that founder is the bottleneck to what's going on in his business. And then you have the other who is an owner architect, and he's working for the company and he's working with the company, but he's not working day to day in the company. So one example that I love to talk about is Jeff Bezos. Jeff probably has forgotten the address to Amazon and the Washington Post. Every time you see him, he is living his best life.
Yeah.
Okay. He's not the same Jeff who was selling books out of his garage. And that's because he has an owner architect mindset, and he's put people in place to do the day-to-day stuff. And he goes out and makes sure that there are resources, that there are things in place so that stockholders are satisfied and they keep buying stock and they keep going to the website. So I think a lot of that is going to be mindset, because you'll have someone who has been a millionaire and filed bankruptcy several times. And guess what? They can become a millionaire again because they have the mindset to do it.
Interesting. I know we're not going to talk about politics, but in terms of economics, there is especially among young people now, there is an anti-business socialistic climate among a lot of the young people out there. I personally believe that you can have equal outcomes or you can have equal opportunity, but you can't have both. I think that you have to have successful people. For example, Henry Ford wasn't a nice guy, I'm sure, but he changed the landscape of the world that we live in. Same as Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and all those other people. They were not only economically successful, but through their success, they transformed the society in which we live. And if you look around the world, we just don't have individuals doing that very often, other than in the United States. I don't know that countries really pioneer a new way of living or a new technology. It's always seems like the rugged individual. As someone who takes care of people in business, how do you feel about that? Do you is the I'll say the fad of praising socialism, is that going to be a dangerous thing, or do you think there's parts of it we need to embrace?
So I'll say this. A lot of the examples that you listed are well-known examples of people that have done things and contributed to society. But also, I think that there are other folks who may not have the same opportunities, but have contributions that may not have been given the right credit. Now, the United States is a huge melting pot, and you can come here and do just about anything. And I think that you have people that maybe were not born here, but have come here and made great contributions, but they may not be as well known as some of the ones that you listed. So, yay and nay.
Okay.
Yay and nay.
Okay. I'll tell you this. I'm from Canton, Ohio. The Professional Football Hall of Fame is 5 minutes outside my door. And tell me what you think of this analogy. I kind of think that the NFL does a good job of balancing socialism and capitalism, and here's how. You take when the Patriots were at their height, and Brady was on, and they were just undefeatable, they're unbeatable there for a while. They did not get the best draft choices. They did not get a lot of other things. The teams that did not do as well got those. The reason that there's a salary cap is so that you don't have successful franchises become so wealthy that they can buy all the best players. So there is a control there. But at the same time, within that system, there still is the ability to excel as an individual team. You still have dynasties. You have the Patriots. You had the Steelers. All these things had their time. But on any given Sunday, like the saying goes, the little guy can win. If you would have a team like the Patriots when Brady was the quarterback, and then they had that wonderful team, and they always got the top draft choices, and they always had the biggest salary to pay out, they would become unbeatable, and the game would die because every game would be a blowout. You would not have good games anymore. I kind of think that's how the economy has to work. You have to have the ability for a company to become big and successful, but you can't allow that company to become so big and successful that they blow everybody else out and the game dies. I don't know. Is that a good analogy? Is that something that you think is a good way of putting how we should look at this? Maybe just without the partisan politics.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the way that you broke it down was excellent. And I definitely agree. Now, I don't know that is necessarily the case now. I think if anything now, there are things being put in place so that the field is not as level, that there are less caps and there are more advantages for people. And so, yes, it's great, but I don't know that that's the world we live in today. Okay.
That's fair enough. And I would have to say that there's probably a lot of truth to that. On the other side of the coin, when you're outgrowing yourself, when, I've been told the little things that you see online all the time. If you're too busy, if you got more business than you can handle, you're not charging enough, and all these other little things that they give you. And they sound cute and they sound brilliant, but when you're really outgrowing yourself, what are the warning signs that you're outgrowing yourself, and what should you be doing when you think about making a change?
Yeah. First thing to think about is, what is it going to take to absorb that growth? And is that growth seasonal? Is it something that happens because there's a demand in the market? Or is it something that happened because of something that you're doing? Because what you do not want to do is increase staff, increase square footage, and then that demand is only short-lived. So one, analyzing where the demand comes from and how you can best absorb it without putting yourself in an economic crunch.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that people don't think about enough is, okay, I'm really successful. We all fantasize about that. We all fantasize about buying the car that we've always wanted and living the dream. But a lot of times, life goes by, you get older, and you got to think about retiring, and how do you get out and keep your shirt on? Sometimes that's not so easy. I worked for a guy a number of years ago, and the marketplace of the business that we were in changed about the time that retirement was on the horizon for him. And he had a hard time unloading that business, and he got lucky. I'll say that. He got lucky. He got an owner that was going to change the direction of the company and make it more high-end tech, computer-based, as opposed to what we were doing with traditional electronics. And he didn't feel that he got what he should have for that company. But I'll tell you what, he's lucky he got what he got, or he'd have been living on Social Security, and that's it. So how do you plan for that? How do you make sure that you can get out well, and that business that you've had pays off well?
So kind of like we talked just generally about beginning with the end in mind, I'm going to use the example of the tech founder. You have multiple tech founders who've had 7- and 8-figure exits. And you know how they did it? Mm-hmm. They figured out the void in the marketplace, and they set out to fill that void with a product, an app, some sort of service. And you have to be very intentional there are certain things that you can do to add value to your company. You can't wait until the company's been in business 20 years and decide, well, I want to sell it in 6 months. Yeah. And I want to make, 5 times five times what's on my books. You have to be very intentional. And you have to also consider minimally your initial investment. You have some entrepreneurs who are retiring from corporate and using all of their money for retirement, their 401k or their savings to start a business. Minimally, you need to get that back at the present day value, as of the date that you retire. So when you talk about exits, don't just game it for a sale. Game it maybe for passing that business to someone else or a merger. What if you lose the business? What sort of equity do you have, if any, that you can pull out? And what's left over?
Yeah. Let me ask you this. There's a lot of people, I think, that are looking at being an entrepreneur a lot more seriously than they did 20 or 30 years ago. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I don't know that a college education is worth as much as it used to be for a lot of different reasons. And you have what we talked about before, AI and all these other things coming into play. The days of working for a company for 25 years or 30 years or whatever and retiring, I'm sure there's people who can still do it. But as a plan, I'm going to say that's not going to happen for most people anymore. So you have a lot of people that are looking at entrepreneurship. And Elon Musk made a good comment. I heard him say one time that if you're 18 years old and you walk into a bank and you ask them for $10,000 to start a business, your chances of getting that are almost nothing. But they'll give you $100,000 to go to school. And it's conditioning. Here again, if you listen to a lot of the entrepreneurs online, it's this idea that you're prepping. You and I are going to go to school together and prep so that you and I can compete for the opportunity to make somebody else rich. Okay, so many people out there think, well, maybe I can do this. But they're afraid because you do have the security of working a job you don't like, but the paycheck is there every 2 weeks. If someone's really seriously considering doing this, what message of hope, what message of inspiration would you give them?
I would tell them to consider COI, the cost of inaction. Because when you do nothing, people think, well, if I just don't make a decision, if I do nothing, it's not costing me anything. But what if you went ahead and started that business, we'll say in 2020, and you had a huge year in 2021, and the business just kept growing and growing versus you just kind of peeling around in 2020, and time is going to pass anyway. So it's not always the return on investment. It's also the cost of inaction and where you could have been had you not taken that calculated risk.
Yes, that's a great line. And, there's here again, the saying out there is a lot of companies really spend a lot of time thinking about payroll, and we're talking about the big ones. Okay. And they want to make sure that they don't pay you too little because you'll quit. And they want to pay you too much because they don't want to cut into their bottom line. So they pay enough to keep you comfortable. Just enough to keep you comfortable. Just enough that you say to yourself, hey, I'm paying my bills. I'm not going to rock the boat. I'm going to stay here. And it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage. And I don't think, here again, the villainization of business owners, I don't think they get enough credit for being as brave as they are to go out there and start a business, take the risk, all the liabilities that come with it in today's world. And you are helping those folks. And I think that says a lot. I think your voice is badly needed. So I really appreciate what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Look, and I'll tell you, if you think you can't do it, you probably can't. It all starts with thinking, yes, I can. Seriously, there were some times when I started my business, I would have welcomed a pack of hot dogs and bologna. Seriously, there were some lean times. And as an entrepreneur, I think that you have to be real with yourself, not saying that everyone's going to struggle in business, but there may be lean days and you have to make a decision. Am I going to make payroll? Am I going to pay the light bill? What's going on with the business? And so there are just a lot of things that go into entrepreneurship, but I'll also share this with you.
Sure.
You don't have to know everything. Mm-hmm. You just need to know who to call and to get the right folks around you. And it may start with fractional folks who are, a fractional CFO, a fractional COO, a fractional general counsel to help you get started and get where you need to be.
That's awesome. Great advice. Now, your podcast is Play Big, Faster podcast. Can you tell us about that? Where can you find it and so on?
The Play Big, Faster podcast is a video first podcast, and we primarily have our videos on YouTube, but they're also on Spotify and Apple. And each episode, we try to make sure that we have at least one actionable thing that you can take away and help grow and scale your business. And we're just passionate about working with entrepreneurs and having founders come on and service providers for founders come on and give you these nuggets.
That is fantastic. Now, social media. What's your social media of choice? Where can people find you? Website, all that good stuff.
I am a little partial to LinkedIn.
Okay.
Even though, I have a presence on Facebook, but I've just found that there are so many entrepreneurs on LinkedIn who are doing great things. Mm-hmm. And you can also catch me at my website at www.scherrieprince.com.
Well, thank you. We've been talking to Scherrie L. Prince, and the Play Big, Faster podcast is what she does. It's a great resource for anybody who just wants to listen about business and gets, at the very least, to give you a background in making decisions and what you might be doing in your own household. But also, if you're taking that step, you're taking that side hustle that you've always had, and you think this is the time. This is the time to take it to the next level. Somebody like you is a great person to follow because, a lot of times you might have a specific thing in your mind. I really wonder if I can find this out. But sometimes when you listen to somebody like you hear something that's a fantastic piece of information that you didn't know about. So that's why listening to somebody like you periodically is such a great thing. And I'm so glad you came on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed our conversation.
Awesome. My name is Billy Dees, and you can find the Billy Dees podcast anywhere podcasts are found. As a matter of fact, we have over a 10-year history now, so we shouldn't be hard to find. As far as social media goes, I'm on X, which at one time was called Twitter. And that's kind of like my social media home. I believe that the real-time nature, the trending aspect of X is... It just coincides with podcasting very well, and that's where you can find me. I'm on most of the other social media things too, but X is kind of like my social media home. Thank you very much for listening to our show today, and we will talk to you again very soon. I'm Billy Dees and host of the self-titled podcast, The Billy Dees Podcast. We are primarily an interview and a commentary-based podcast featuring authors and creators talking about their craft, advocates for community issues, and myself and an array of co-hosts discussing current events. There's no partisan ranting and raving going on here, just great content. You can find the Billy Dees Podcast on your favorite platform and on Twitter at Billy Dees. Thank you, and I hope you listen in.